So I was wondering why I look so big. Actually, can you work that out there?
Good morning and welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing live. Slight technical hits here before we went live, but we're now live. And remember, if you're watching on YouTube, to hit the subscribe button and you'll get alerts for whenever the live videos take place. I'm joined today by Alison McConnell. How are you, Alison?
Very well, thank you, Tony. Yourself?
Good. Another vital midweek Scottish Premiership action. Celtic travel to Easter Road to play Hibernian, looking for their third away win in the spin, fourth league victory, consecutive league victory, and fifth victory in all competitions. It's all ticking along rather nicely for Celtic, Alison.
I think you're right, but I think this one's probably the biggest test that they face in that run. I think it'll be tougher than Pittodrie. I think it'll be tougher than Fir Park. I say that appreciating that Hibs themselves haven't been firing on all cylinders. I know they've lost their last 3 league games, but I think historically they make life very difficult for Celtic at Easter Road. I think we referenced this earlier in the week. It's 2014 since the last time Celtic won there on league duty. It's a record that stretches back for a reason. I think in some ways I wouldn't say it's a free hit for Hibernian tonight, but I think the pressure is off this evening. The anticipation and the onus is on Celtic to go and produce and to do something. I think they also have Ryan Porteous coming back into the starting lineup after he served his suspension. I think he's a very good player. I think he definitely strengthens them defensively. I think it'll be a tough night for Celtic tonight. If they prevail and come out of it, I think it should be the catalyst then to go and really kick on.
Now, that's the follow-up question, Alison. If Celtic win, people will now undoubtedly say they're ready to mount a serious Premiership title challenge. This will test their title credentials and their mettle tonight. But do you see that? You just said there that it could be the catalyst for things to come, but that's very much a school of thought, isn't it? That they're ready to mount a kind of serious title challenge if they can go to Hibernian and win.
I think the reality is that Celtic will always be expected to mount a title challenge. I think even if results don't go well tonight, I think there's still a drive to recover. There will always be a pressure and an expectation to push Rangers all the way. I think what would happen with a win tonight is that it would encourage a belief from supporters within what Ange Postecoglou is looking to do, and it would encourage a belief within the team. It also aids the momentum that he's trying to build, and I think that only comes with winning games and keeping clean sheets. I think the stats are quite interesting. I think this season, I think we've spoken about it, that Celtic still exude an aura of defensive frailty. I think you still maybe don't entirely trust them defensively in games, but when you look at the stats, I think only Celtic and Dundee United boast the fewest number of goals conceded. I think Celtic have scored more goals than any other team. I think these kind of details would lead you to believe that they are indeed a championship challenging team. And I think it's really about proving it by going to places like Easter Road and coming away with the win.
Now, David Bradley comes in here and says, go in with the confidence we have earned. And Michael Quinn says, we broke the away hoodoo, now we need to break the Hibs one. That's his reference to you when Celtic last beat a Hibs team when Terry Butcher was the manager, no less, 2014 even, we'll say that, yeah, 2014. That's a bit of that's quite some stretch, isn't it? That's some start, that, Alison, when you think about it. That's, 7 years Celtic have gone to Easter Road and not recorded the victory.
I think too, when you consider the calibre of managers and the strength of the squad that Celtic had in that time, so you think of Brendan Rodgers and the Invincible teams, I think they got a couple of draws in league duty through Easter Road. I think, if memory serves me right, I think there might be cup wins in there.
Yeah, there's cup wins in there.
Yeah, it's not a straightforward case of not having gone there and won. And in some ways, I do think stats like that can be overplayed. I think at LU Streets, that it can be a difficult place to go, and how Hibs respond to the challenge of playing Celtic. But there are a whole clutch of new players in that dressing room now, and you would like to think that they're untainted by those experiences, that it's not something that's prevalent in the minds of players. that instead it's just a straightforward focus on the game. And Hibs haven't been playing well in recent weeks. I've seen them a couple of times. The performances haven't been great. I think particularly sobering would have been that defeat to Dundee United at Easter Road. I think when confronted with pace, they struggle, which is why in my lineups, I think he might bring Abada back in and go with that tried and tested front three. He might go with Jota, he'll go through the middle and Abada, and then if there is no success coming on the hour mark or so, he has the option to change it and to change the dimension of how the team are playing.
Well, Anthony Patrick Allen agrees. We need to play Kyogo through the middle. He says, Alison, that's what you said in your team, didn't you, when you brought back Abada? And David Bradley comes back in and says the pace we have will frighten them. That's very much your thoughts as well, isn't it? That Celtic will revert to that tried and tested front three.
I think so. I think I would agree. I think it's a pace that can be so devastating for other teams to try and defend against when confronted with it. I think the intelligence of Kyogo is difficult to quantify. I think his movement is a step ahead of everyone. I think that must be a nightmare to try and handle in a defensive context. And I think he offers so much in that role and in that position.
It's the big conundrum that Ange has for tonight, isn't it? Because Giakoumakis made his debut, he scored against St Johnstone, and the manager has shown it. He likes the status quo with his selection, doesn't he? It's only every now and again he'll maybe change it up. So, and the Celtic supporters they love to see Kyogo through the middle, but he did it at Ibrox, he did it again Saturday, pushed him out wide, and justifies it, by saying that he can play there.
Yeah, I think what he has now are options. I'm not sure that he has always had that through personnel and injury issues and suspensions since in the 3-4 months that he's been in at the club. So I think he'll welcome the kind of headache that we always hear managers like to have. But what I do think it gives them are options to genuinely change things within games. So if it isn't working, then you have someone who can come off the bench and influence play and help to alter the shape and alter the scope of how you've set up and ask different kind of questions if your plan A isn't working. And I think for a long time Celtic haven't necessarily had that. I think Giakoumakis has offered a different sense of playing. I think he's got a physical element that Celtic don't have at the minute.
Celtic supporters expect now, Alison, don't they? They are expecting to go to Easter Road and win, because the way the team has played the past few games, they're liking what they're seeing, and there's now an air of expectancy, and they feel that they can now go to places like Pittodrie, Fir Park, now Easter Road's the next one, and you feel that they can win.
I think there's always that level of expectancy among the Celtic support. I think it's a demand. I think it's a will to win that's prevalent. I think it's why it makes Celtic a club that some people can struggle at, because the pressure is absolute. I think it's there all the time, regardless of previous results or the form of the team. I think there is always an expectation to go and win, regardless of the level of opposition. I don't think it's any different tonight, but what I think you have seen probably since just before and after the international break is a level of confidence in the system that the manager is trying to build and the kind of football that he wants to play. I think you can see it taking root at times. I think sometimes it's glimpsed in flashes in games. You maybe have a 15 or 20 minute period where you can see that Celtic are fairly devastating from middle to front at times. I think the key now is doing that on a consistent basis and marrying it to a really sound defensive system.
David Bradley comes in, Alison, and he says, Alison, this is the game I want to see Turnbull controlling it. Do you go along with that?
I think he certainly has the talent to do so. I think he's one of the most exciting young players in the Scottish game. I think we've seen, again, I would point to in glimpses, you have seen the capability that he has. We've seen goals this season. I think he's maybe on 7 goals so far this term. I think you want to see that continuing. I think he should be looking to hit double figures at least this season from given the way that Celtic are set up and the way that they play, and he has a creative license to get forward. I think I think he and Roderick and Callum McGregor will play in the middle. I think that will be the central three. I think obviously Callum McGregor in that slightly deeper role, and then I think Tom Roderick and David Turnbull will be given licence to go and try and create and trying to run the midfield. And I think that's where the game actually might be won and lost. If you can control that area of the pitch, then you know that you're going to create chances and you're going to have be the dominant force within the game.
And remember, Turnbull has got it on his locker to put swaz on the ball, Alison, and score, wonder goals, as he himself put it. He likes to put a bit of swaz on the ball, so he does like shooting from long range. So it's always something good to have in your armoury, isn't it?
I think it's something different. I think if you find that the game is quite sticky, I think if there's not a lot of space, then it's certainly an option. I think sometimes you don't want to be wasteful there either. I think sometimes if there is an alternative and better option, you maybe want to use the width that you see within Celtic and get the ball into the box. But I think it's definitely an option. I think, and if it's on, then we've seen that he has the capability of scoring from there. Callum McGregor's another that you've seen score from the edge of the box numerous times. I think, but I think that the system and the way that Celtic are set up lends an attacking dimension to various different aspects of their game. I think it's all about what they're doing. The focus is always all about what they're doing in possession and getting the ball into the front three. It should give you goals. I think there's maybe been the odd game where it's been sticky, where it's not came. I'm thinking of that Livingston game and a draw against Dundee United. But even then, there were chances created. I think Celtic are starting to look again like a team who have goals in them.
Yeah, Simon Thomas says if Hibs play openly, then Kyogo will cut them up. That's a fair point, because Kyogo is at his most effective when he's going through the middle, isn't he? The manager's alluded to that as well. But whenever he plays out wide, you're always thinking about what would he be doing when he's going through the middle, because he's always on the move, isn't he? He's always thinking, and as you said yourself, he looks to be 2 or 3 steps ahead of most defenders on the park. Yeah,
I think you saw that last Thursday night, just that ball from Jota, and if you look at Kyogo, he's on the move almost before it leaves his boot. He's anticipating it. I think the understanding between those two players, I think you've seen two coming to the fore in recent weeks. I think you can see the understanding between the two of them. They're two very impressive footballers, have started their Celtic careers extraordinarily well. But I think just having that appreciation of one another and being able to anticipate the movements is a key to building a very good side.
Frank Brennan comes in here, Alison, and says, yes, we are genuine title challengers, and the simple facts are only it from tonight and all the way through to next May is to grind out winning results at all cost, and one goal is never enough. That's a fair comment.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And I think I agree. I think a one-goal lead in any game always feels very precarious. I think, it's you're one mistake away from being paid back. I think, too, obviously there was a defeat at Tynecastle on the opening day of the season, a defeat at Ibrox, and then dropped points, a defeat to Livingston, there's dropped points all the way. I think Celtic are in a position now where every game is framed by what's gone before. You're thinking you can't afford to lose further ground. I think if you're a half glass full, you're looking at it and saying, well, Rangers haven't hit the form of last season. They've been fairly stuttering, albeit that they've been grinding out results. I think had they maximised the opportunities that they had with the Celtic slip-ups, they would have been further ahead by now. So I think you can look at the 4 points that are there just now are absolutely, it's absolutely possible to close that gap fairly quickly. However, you don't want it furthering anymore. I think Celtic will know they really can't afford to lose further ground, and they also can't afford to give encouragement to Rangers. I think there's a sense just now that Celtic are building something, that there is some momentum coming, that they're piecing together a fairly strong team to go and challenge and take this title. I think the last thing you want to do is offer an impression that it's just not quite there yet.
You spoke about options, Alison, and one of the options that they've had in the past couple of games is Mikey Johnson coming on and playing particularly well in his wee cameos that he's had. Again, another option great way to change up the game if Ange Postecoglou needs it.
I think he's looked very hungry. I think Sean and I spoke about this on Monday. I think he's looked like a player eager to make up for lost time. We know he's had issues with injuries. I think he's looked hungry, he's looked positive, he's looked energetic, he's looked keen to come in and showcase what he's got. I think he'll see that there's a challenge for him in terms of his position of getting back in, and I think he'll feel as though, you know, he's got nothing to lose by trying to force his way back into the starting lineup. And the only way he does that is by making a really compelling case for inclusion through assists and through goals and through an element of creativity when he does come on.
Michael Quinn comes in here and says McGregor spoke brilliantly to the Celtic fan media on how the team is developing and gelling so quickly under Ange. Saw some clips of that interview yesterday and he did speak very well about it.
I think he speaks very well
in general.
I think he's articulate. I think he's clever. I think he's an intelligent boy. I think he is captain material. I know people sometimes have asked questions whether or not he is a captain. I think he is. I think he's an influential leader within the dressing room and was even when Scott Brown was there. I think he understands the bigger picture of what's going on and what the team are trying to do, but crucially too, I think Cal McGregor is a very good footballer. I think you've seen it this year. I think at international level, at domestic level, I think he's a very accomplished midfielder. I'm not sure he's always had the praise he deserves for that. I think he's one of these guys that's quite happy just to get on with it wherever he's asked to play. But he lends so much to the Celtic midfield, and the way to quantify that is just how missed he was when he was injured and missed a couple of games.
He's also played an incredible amount of football over the past 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, he and James Forrest they were traditionally on the 55, 60 appearances, and I remember actually in previous seasons both of those guys, I think, topped the minutes across Europe for footballers and how much they were playing. And I think you have to be careful with that because, as we've seen with James Forrest and the injuries and how much stress it can put physically on your body, I think you do have to try and manage it. I think he's a player that Celtic can't afford to miss for key games. I think he's so important to the way that they play. So I think if there is scope at times to rest him in games, I think you would want to take it.
Now here's a couple of... Frank Brennan comes in again. We have a wee magician and someone who always puts a smile on her face, and Kyogo, and for me, must always be played through the middle to see him at his very best. We've discussed that. David Bradley comes in, agreeing with yourself and myself. Alison McGregor's pure class. And Simon Thomas comes in, as we're talking about Mikey Johnson, saying Mikey's a huge talent. He just needs to release the ball sooner when the opposition close in. There's a fair degree of opinion in the chats, in the comments here, Alison, but most of them agreeing with what we're seeing as well.
It's not often you get people like that, so keep it coming.
I think they're all in harmony, aren't they, and just enjoying what Celtic are producing at the minute. Maybe that's why.
I think in terms of Mikey Johnson and the comment there about maybe just releasing the ball a bit earlier, I think that comes, one, through experience, and two, I think just coming back into the team. I think he's been out for a long time. I think it'll just take a while just to find your match sharpness again and your awareness and speed of thought as much of it as anything else. I think that comes just with playing games in game time. I think it will come. But I think at the minute, what you have around Celtic just now is a level of optimism. I think people can see the improvements that have been made. They look cohesive. I think they look fairly fluent at times. I think they're still a work in progress. But when you consider that there are players to come back into the team who will lend an experience, a solidity, and I'm thinking here of James Forrest, of Christopher Julian, and also in 2 months or so you have the window open again, and I think an opportunity to go and strengthen again and to have a look at identifying the areas that need to be bolstered, and it would then give you an opportunity to kick on in the second half of the campaign. But certainly what you have now are people willing this team to do well. There is no doubt that they're firmly behind the manager. And I think sometimes when you don't have that and you're fighting against the current, it can be very, very difficult to get people back on side. So I think that when you have the crowd behind you and you have the support of that, I think it gives you a very tentative platform to go and build something.
Well, I'm going to give you an incredible stat here, Alison, right? I like to do some research in these things. But Celtic are unbeaten in the last 38 league matches played on a Wednesday. 130 draw. 130 drawn 8. It's incredible. And they've not lost since they get beat by St Johnstone 2-1 in 2016.
So
they played 38 games on a Wednesday and 130 and drawn 8. Now,
so the charts at Lennoxtown then are just all about avoiding Tuesday games.
You'll see hundreds of Celtic supporters now running to their nearest bookmaker and investing heavily on a Celtic victory tonight. That's an amazing stat, that, isn't it? That's what a whole season of games on a Wednesday night and they've not lost. Incredible.
Well, indeed. I think the challenge will be to continue that this evening.
And on that amazing statistical note, we shall end the broadcast. Thanks for your contribution, Alison, as always, and thanks for tuning in. And remember, if you're watching on YouTube, to hit the subscribe button, and it flags up when we're going live, and you can support top quality journalism covering the club you love for £1 a month if you subscribe to the Celtic Way. Thanks very much.